Hi, everyone. We are so excited that you are here. And for anyone that may be watching this later on, welcome to our conversation between Orlando Mom Collective, a handful of amazing local moms, and Advent Health Primary Care Plus. So today we're talking to these awesome moms about prioritizing health. And since we've all been living through a pandemic for over 2 years or almost 2 years now, we're all navigating healthcare more so than we ever expected to, and in different ways than we ever expected to. It's not very traditional what we've been going through. So in addition to our regular healthcare appointments, we've got COVID scares, allergies for some of us going absolutely crazy. Mental health has become a huge topic, and then there's this hyper focus on nutrition all around us. So as moms, we know that our regular appointments are super important, but it can become very daunting with new COVID rules and protocols that we've been faced with. And also appointment availability has been a little scarce. So access to healthcare has become a little complicated. Not to mention the fact that most moms have more than just, our traditional annual primary care appointments to worry about. We have, mammograms as we get older, our gynecologists, any specialty providers that we have to see on a regular basis. So prioritizing our healthcare sometimes plays second fiddle to our families, because when you have kids, obviously, we want to make sure that our kids are going to their checkups and getting their vaccines and going to the dentist and so on. So we're just, a group of moms, and we're going to be talking about how the pandemic has affected us in general, especially when it comes to finding time for our healthcare. So in addition to hearing from Advent Health Primary Care Plus with some helpful tips and information on their new Central Florida locations and how they serve local moms, we'll be getting firsthand information and questions from some local moms and things that they've been dealing with. So let's get started with a few introductions. Joining us today as moderator for our conversation is Copelia Acevedo from Z88.3. She's also one of our Orlando Mom contributors. She's going to be asking our panel of moms questions and kind of guiding our conversation this evening. We also have Stacy Lynn Rivera, APRN. She's from Advent Health Primary Care Plus. So welcome, Stacy. Thanks for joining us. We also have our awesome group of moms. We have Skylar, Suzanne, Michelle, Rochelle, Kelly, Deepa, and Lori. So I appreciate all of you for joining us. And Copelia, you can take it away.
Thank you so much. So we are going to jump right in with our first question for Skylar. How has being a mom impacted you going to the doctor and taking care of yourself?
As a mom of 5 kids, probably 10 years ago, I was really on top of everything. I actually, went to all the specialty doctors, but I would, I'm ashamed to say, but my gynecologist is pretty much my primary care. It's impacted greatly. Besides seeing my gynecologist, I don't really go to my primary care. It's something hard to swallow, but I keep up with my kids. With having 5 kids, you have not just yearly, but when they're, an infant, you go almost every month. And then you have sick visits and, the dentist. And so my kids are in great health. Besides gynecologist and probably the dentist is the only thing that I actually keep up with.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing and being so open. I think we can all relate to, we usually end up at the last spot of the list. Everything gets taken care of and then mom. So Rochelle, we have our next question for you. Did the pandemic make this whole situation worse, or did it help you take control while being home for an extended period of time?
So this question actually hits home for me pretty hard. almost 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so stage 4, and I was, so doctor visits, all that blood work, scans were a regular part of my life. And then once COVID hit, I feel like that all took, it went to the background, trying to get my kids situated in this, COVID situation. I work from home and I travel for my job. So, I had my kids home virtually. My husband's out of state working. My sister lives with us, but she's a school teacher. So she was, out of the house every day. And so it was really hard as a mom of a 10 and 12-year-old to navigate my health. I was always putting my kids' health, my husband's health, everyone around me above myself. And so I feel like, my health has kind of taken a backtrack since COVID, even since we've been home, right? Everyone thinks that like you're home all the time, that you can, do all these things, navigate everything. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that's kind of the way it actually works. So, yeah, I think, I think especially in corporate America, I think at the beginning, there was a lot more grace in terms of, for my job and for school, like making time, be with your family, make sure everything is okay with you guys, make sure you're healthy. But then as the months went on, it became kind of like, okay, well, everything's good now. You kind of have a job to do. You have things, your kids have to, be present, do well at school. And so, it's just been harder as the pandemic has grown, honestly, to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I need to prioritize myself, not above my kids or my husband or my family, but just prioritize myself also, right? So, yeah.
Right. And you mentioned you had a stage 4 cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
We're so thankful you're still here, Rochelle.
I am too. Yes, I am too.
Thank God. So I think we can all agree the pandemic probably made it worse, just in so many ways, like you were just sharing.
Yeah.
I want to interject something really quick.
I honestly can say that I put off. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go, Erin, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I noticed in the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all like confined to our houses, even when you would call the doctor, like they had such strict protocols that I cannot imagine someone going through a cancer treatment or having to go to those follow-up appointments, being able to even get into the doctor, because at one point, like our pediatrician wouldn't even see our kids unless they had a negative COVID test, or it had been 90 days since you tested positive. Like there were such strict rules in place that I can totally see how that regular maintenance and care would totally get months and months behind just based off of the protocols that are in place. Stacey, do you have anything to input on that?
Sorry, I'm still trying to navigate my phone here. Tech savvy is what I'm not. So yeah, no, I do understand a lot of the offices did have that. We don't have any protocols right now as far as that. And, we're going on over 2 years with this whole pandemic and everything. So unfortunately, you girls are not in a boat by yourselves. Almost every patient I get that's establishing, we just opened the Claremont location. That's the health park that I'm at, down on 50. We're across from maybe another hospital you might be aware of. Wink, wink. And we are a standalone facility, but part of the reason we did open is to make it a one-stop shop for everybody, because everyone did put everything on the back burner. So first of all, being a great group of moms, give yourself some credit for being a mom, because it's super hard, and it's super hard during a pandemic. And especially because our self-care does get set back behind. And so as far as everything kind of winding down with the protocols, it did make it definitely hard to get anywhere with the negative testing. And I still get patients that, especially travelers that are coming in and they can't get back home because they can't have a negative test. They can't get in to see their specialist because they need a negative test, and then they can't get a test because we're out of tests. And you see a big circle, unfortunately, around that whole pandemic issue right there.
Yeah, it has been a challenge for sure. Thank you, Stacey, and thank you, Rochelle, for sharing. I think we can all agree. Yes. So the good thing is we're here to talk about, the way we address those challenges and what we can do. So question number 3 is for Kelly. What would you say makes it easier, or what would make it easier for you to maintain those annual appointments that are so hard to put on our schedules?
So I think that I can identify with what I'm hearing all the other mamas say right now. I also tend to think of my yearly well women's visit as my primary my visit to my primary. So I think that for women, like making it or for us moms, making it a priority means realizing that we have to put ourselves at the top of the list. I mean, I was trying to brainstorm ideas about what would help me on scheduling online so I can look at all of my calendars at once. Absolutely, that'd be really nice. You know, a really one-stop shop, like even if you could have like your blood work done at the same place as your doctor would be really nice. But I think at the top of the list has to honestly be just that commitment to yourself that you're going to do it and that you're going to follow through with it. And it can just be very difficult and daunting in a time like this. I think a lot of emotion comes into play because we feel like we have so many other things that are more important. I almost feel like I might be bothering somebody by needing to schedule just a primary care visit. Like there has to be people who need services more than me. Like those types of things just always, I think, are going through our heads as moms. So just realizing we really need to put ourselves first is really the thing that would make it easier for me to maintain an appointment. So that really comes down on me to make that decision to do that. But otherwise, you know, honestly, anything that can make it easier technology wise is always great. I'm not a huge fan of the telehealth meetings. I really want to go in and see somebody in person. That's kind of important to me just because I feel like the telehealth it's harder to communicate with somebody and really get open and just realizing that when you're face to face with a person, it gets a little easier.
That's all really good stuff. Thank you, Kelly. And Stacy, since we're on that same idea, would you mind sharing a little bit about Advent Health Primary Care Plus?
Absolutely. So we are at the new health park that's in Claremont, like I said, and we are, Kelly, for you, the one-stop shop. So we are Primary Care Plus because of our hours. We are open 7 days a week. At this location, we are open 7 to 7 Monday through Thursday, 7 to 5 on Friday, and 8 to 2 Saturday and Sunday. We are upstairs. If you guys have seen the building, we are attached to a standalone emergency department, which is a full service, 22 beautiful beds of emergency care. And underneath us, we do have a full service lab, which is open almost exactly the same hours, if not later than ours. So most of my patients, honestly, I just order their labs and tell them to go downstairs and have them done. Because I don't worry if you're fasting or anything, because I physically have you in the building. I will order everything that we can do while you are here, because there is a pandemic, to see what we can do to get everyone on the same page. We do have imaging downstairs. They do x-rays, CTs, MRIs. They do your mammograms. We also have a sleep study lab downstairs. Upstairs across from us, there are specialists in-house. So we do have a endocrinologist. We have a Uro-GYN, a cardiologist, a gastroenterologist, and I think that's all the ologists we have right now. And they are working on transitioning their practices. So most of them are here a couple of days a week. But if there was something that I did an EKG in the office and I was worried about it, I can physically walk down to the cardiologist and get you in sooner than you calling the office and having them, give you the runaround of, it'll be in a month. And we have all their phone numbers, so we can actually move that process a little bit quicker. So you're not the only one. As far as the woman's well exams, so anyone that has children does go to their GYN for their follow-up and their postpartum and their prenatals, and that's what we do as moms. We also can do your pap smears, and so we can take the place of your well woman exams, because you don't have to see your GYN as much as we had to previously with the new guidelines, unless obviously you're having a child, then we want you to still see them. But for the other stuff, we're more than happy to take over care for that, to kind of get you that window of that one-stop shop. They have a nice little, if you guys have not seen the building, it's gorgeous. They have a nice little coffee shop downstairs. It looks more like a hotel than a hospital or a doctor's office at all. I mean, they did a great job with the building to kind of give you that peace of mind. They have a great physical therapy downstairs, and they are working on expanding some community classes that they may be doing, some like yoga they're talking about. They have a nice little outdoor area set up with little fake turf and, lights and everything. So they're really trying to bring it all back to the community to get everyone involved in healthcare again, because we did take, a 2-year hiatus of everybody, having pandemic.
Can you tell us where all the locations are? Because I don't think we are familiar with that.
So the full service health parks right now are Kissimmee and Parton Settlement, which is like Kissimmee St. Cloud. That one's open, and then we are open, and then they are building one in Lake Nona. The Primary Care Plus offices without the health parks all have the extended hours. They just don't all have access to the labs. Winter Garden Plaza has one right next to the Panera, and they have a standalone ER across the street. So they're kind of doing the same thing. They're just split across the road, so they can send everyone across the street for imaging and everything. So we are 10 more Primary Care Plus this year is, I think, what we have on the books right now.
Thank you, Stacy. I have actually passed the one in Claremont. I haven't visited yet, but I pass it all the time because my daughter does gymnastics across at Brandy Johnson's gym.
Oh,
so we see it. We saw it going up, and it was like it does look beautiful from the outside.
yeah, they did. It's just as nice on the inside. They did a great job.
Very cool. Well, if we want to move on to question number 4, it's for Suzanne. And the question is, what are some things you do for self-care?
Wow, what things I do, which I always have a plan, right? But I mean, I do walk regularly, right? So I do that. I like to do it alone because that's when I listen to my podcasts and I can decompress and, you know, I can chat with my friends later. But that's my one kind of sacred. I need to be doing more. I'm 55. You know, you think things get easier when you have older teens and all of that, but then you start taking care of your parents and doing those things. So I'm at that stage. So I'm probably at a more like higher stress level, way more than I thought I would be at this point. But so walking is my big thing. I'm trying to get into more mindfulness and doing some of those things, but I really need to get better at committing and following through with those things.
So
Thank you.
speaking of self-care, I wanted to mention personally that I think mental health, I know in our household, mental health has really taken a huge role in conversations we're having lately. And I know that it's become a really big topic and received a lot more attention throughout the pandemic, which I was really happy to see. Sad in the way that it came about, but grateful that the conversation is actually happening. And I struggled in the beginning of the pandemic. It was really bad. I quit nursing. I had to stop drinking coffee. My heart condition was going erratic because my anxiety was so bad. So I had a really bad experience with having mental health issues in the beginning of the pandemic. And I've seen so many other people struggle. So Stacy, do you have any mental health tips or self-care tips that you can share just to kind of help us and other moms deal with prioritizing self-care and making sure that mental health, you know, is in check?
Absolutely. And I appreciate your honesty there. I tell my patients pretty much on a daily that if you didn't have mental health issues before the pandemic was enough to give it to everybody. And there's so much truth to that. So it affected everyone differently. Those that couldn't work wanted to work. Those that had to work didn't want to go to work because we were terrified. So everybody had a different take on it, but it was enough to throw everyone, you know, just like toddlers, the one thing you can't do is the one thing you really want to do. So did we go out all the time? No, but the fact that you locked us all up and told us we couldn't go, we really wanted to go out all the time. And so there's some truth to that, having your control taken away. So I think everyone suffers in their own way. And I think part of it is exactly right. Having that conversation that we're not alone, that we're all in this together, that mental health is the thing that we don't talk enough about. It's the thing that a lot of people get treated for. I write lots and lots of prescriptions, but it's not something you go to your neighbor's house and tell them that, you know, your Prozac just got increased and you feel great. Because it's just kind of that thing that, you know, it's still a little bit taboo out there, sadly enough. We do have counseling. We do the televisits as well at Primary Care Plus, which makes it easier for when you have all the kids at home and they're sleeping and you're in between practice, you can do your visit on the phone to get your medication adjusted or to call in something. We are always welcome to do the face-to-face to actually get you in and put hands on, but to kind of get a little bridge there. The Primary Care Plus does work with Advent Health Mental Group, and they actually have kind of a streamlined process for mental health because the issue was with everyone having the same issues. It was really difficult to get into psychiatrists. So I would have patients that I would refer out and, you know, we can get you in 3 months. Well, that's not going to help you to wait 3 months, you know, go home and, you know, think about it for 3 months, then, you know, that's just making it worse. So the program that we have, we send the referrals directly through the computer while you're here. And their group has been excellent. And, you know, we've been open not quite a month yet, that they will contact the patient, usually while the patient's still in the room. And call them and say, hey, guess what? We're checking your insurance. We're going to validate and we're going to get you an appointment within the next 2 weeks. So I've had patients get as seen as close as 4 days from the days that we've seen them with psych, and they can do telehealth to get them established, resume their medications if it's something that, you know, we're not willing to continue for them, or if we can't continue due to laws and regulations. And they can get them set up with a support group or, you know, counseling if that's something they're interested in.
That is awesome. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's really great information. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry for getting a little sidetracked.
No, that was great. I think it's great. And I think we can go on with question number 5 unless anybody else wants to jump in. I think if we had any follow-up questions to that would be, what would you tell moms who are wondering, is what I'm feeling normal? And when should you get help? Because a lot of the times you're like, oh, everybody's depressed, everybody's anxious, but when do you draw the line with, I'm gonna be okay, this is just a season, you know, you're feeling PMS, it's PMS. But if it's going on for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, at what point, Stacey, would you say, you know what, make the call? Because it's gone on for so long, you're not sleeping, you're not eating. What would you say are some red flags that should tell moms, get help?
And that's a great question. And there's so many moving parts to that, unfortunately. But I do think, and I tell people, I'm not big on labels. So I don't care if you're majorly depressed. I don't care if it's anxiety. I don't care if it's bipolar. It's the fact that we want you to be able to function the way you did before. So it's just to get you back to activities of daily living. So if you notice that, you know, your spouse says, hey, guess what? You know, you've been sitting in the corner crying more often than you used to. Like, isn't your menses over? Like, why are you so PMSy? Like you said. And then you're going on 3 weeks, or the kids are like, Mom, why are you so snappy? There's obviously something happening, because most people around you notice it before you notice that's a problem. If you notice that, hey, it's really a struggle to get up in the morning, and I send the kids to school and I come back and I lay in bed and I want to hide under covers all day. If that to you is like, hey, you know what? I really would rather go out with my girlfriends and, you know, have a girls' night out, but I'm just not in the mood to do it. Then it's affecting you. Then it's a problem. And then that's when, hey, when do we get looked at? Because when we put it on the back burner for too long, what happens is it becomes your new norm. And then you forget how good you felt before the pandemic, and you forget what it was like to go out with your girlfriends. And, you know, hey, I did like going to the gym, or I did like going to the nail salon, because that was like, you know, my 10 minutes away or whatever. And so anytime you notice, or if you're even on the fence, have a conversation. Just because you bring it up in the office doesn't mean that we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to throw a label on you and make you taboo and make you take medicine. It's just to have the conversation, say, hey, you know what? We could give you a questionnaire, because a lot of those little things, you know, mom stuff sometimes, you know, transposes this, you know, we don't sleep because, you know, we have a baby, you know, they're teething, they're breastfeeding. There's lots of reasons to not sleep as a mom. And some of it can be depression and your moods, you know, go in the wrong direction. You know, you got a lot of stress going on. There's a lot of life happening right now. So I never think it's a bad idea to bring it up, have a conversation. I always give patients some medicines that they can go look up. Everyone's tech savvy. Go look it up, go talk to your friends. And then, you know what, think about it. And if you're like, hey, you know what, maybe I'm ready, then you just come back. And then, well, you know, we can always start something out.
That's really great.
I can honestly say that I wasn't the one to bring up any anxiety meds or anything. My doctor was. So we were talking and she just asked me, like, how are you feeling? And I was like, well, you know, I'm this, I'm that. And she's like, you know, do you think maybe, you know, you might be, you know, you might have a little bit of anxiety? And I said, well, I never really thought that I was anxious or whatever, but it could be this. And so she said, well, are you opposed to, you know, trying this medication, seeing if it helps, seeing if it works? And so, you know, up until that point, I just thought that that was for, I don't know, not other people, but just, I didn't think it was for me, right? So it wasn't until she brought it up to me, because I was explaining, first of all, because she asked how I was doing and really asked, like, how are you feeling? But until then, I didn't really think that, you know, anything like that could help me. And it has helped me a lot within the past couple of years. So definitely, Stacey, I love what you just said there, because it really does make a difference.
Excellent. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Stacey.
Rochelle, just to piggyback on that real quick, sorry. I was going to tell you, thank you. And I'm so glad that you got help and you realize that it's beneficial for you and that you're feeling better, which is the bottom line, especially as a survivor. So thumbs up to you for that. And I even do for all my new patients, I give them all a standard questionnaire because you just met me. There's lots of stuff that you're feeling that you don't want to tell me because you don't know me from anyone. And so sometimes that's just enough to start the conversation, that if I can get some tools ready for you and bring up, hey, you know what, it looks like you're not sleeping. It looks like, this is going on. Then sometimes that's enough. You have to build a rapport with your patient. So it's not easy to just say, hey, are you anxiety? No, I'm not. I feel fine. I'm a mom. This is what I do. I'm super busy. I don't have time for stuff. But you have to get it relatable. So sometimes, that process takes a little bit of time, but sometimes those screening questionnaires are enough to open the doorway to make you have maybe this isn't normal. Maybe, I used to sleep better, before, and the pandemic is starting to bother me.
Definitely. Well, thank you, ladies. I think we're going to move on to question number 5. This one's for Lori, and it says, how have the last 2 years impacted your mental health, keeping it going?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. I'm happy to be here. So I am somebody who went into the pandemic with anxiety to begin with. I identify as an anxious person, and I've had almost a lifelong battle with that realm of health. And therefore, the pandemic actually was great at first because I was like, awesome, I'm an introvert. I don't need to talk to anyone now. This is great. So in that sense, I actually felt relief because I didn't have to be face to face with people. I have a lot of social anxiety on top of other anxieties. But what it made me realize as months wore on is that I really do need human connection. And I also noticed that being at home 24/7, especially I still work from home now, you don't shut off. As a mom, you don't shut off, but you really don't shut off when you work from home as well. So I have found that the mental gymnastics don't end. They are 24/7, even when I go to sleep, even when I wake up. And throughout the entire pandemic, I was just exhausted. I felt like I just run a marathon every single day and just in my brain. And so it was trying to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? It's not working. So what do I do? And in a good way, the pandemic helped a little bit because I was able to seek help virtually, which sounded a lot less scary than seeking help in person, to be honest. And so I actually ended up joining a support group, and I became almost like best friends with these people. Once a week, we would sit down and really, really just talk about the nitty gritty. And it made me realize that connection is so important. And yes, virtual connection is incredible. I believe in it. That's why I'm here for Orlando Mom Collective. But in person too, is just incredibly important for mental health, on top of, seeing whoever you need to see professionally for it as well. But the pandemic definitely made it more difficult, but then opened up doors that I wasn't really expecting it to open up.
That is so good. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
I'm a fellow introvert. I was feeling the same thing. I'm like, yes, we don't have to do anything.
But then isn't it
yeah,
funny how you can be an introvert, but it's more about you still need that connection. You just recharge differently. So
exactly. And I was just reading an article that Erin had shared about the blue zones. A lot of people know about the blue zones, the parts of the world where people live the longest. And they're studied to find out why in these parts of the world, people just have longevity, and they're trying to figure out why. And one of the 4 pillars, in addition to, of course, all the things we know, eating healthy, exercise, no stress, was love more, community, connection. And I thought that was fascinating. I'm like, we know this, but so thank you for bringing that up, Lori. And I think we have question number 6 for Erin. I know you're big on healthy eating, and we were just wanting to ask, as a busy mom, with Orlando Mom Collective and all the things, what are some healthy snacks, easy dinners that you could share with us to kind of inspire us to do the same?
So yes, we're big on healthy eating, but I will be completely transparent and honest. During the pandemic, in the beginning, it was great because I would always complain like, oh, it's so hard to make dinner. I'd spend an hour or two some nights making dinner. So I thought it was great. We're all confined to our house. I have all this extra time. However, I work from home anyway. So now that, life is kind of life again. I've been feeling super stressed and anxious about meal planning, and I love Blue Zones. I have their cookbooks. I love everything about it. We're primarily plant-based, so we eat a lot of, whole grains, vegetables, but it's really hard to make healthy snacks a priority because it's just so easy when you go to the grocery store to buy other things. And so the main thing that I do is when I get home from the grocery store, or I get I get Misfits produce, it's like misshapen, like ugly produce. So as soon as the box comes, the first thing I do is wash it, and then I prep the produce. So I leave the apples on the counter so they're within reach, because these boys eat apples like crazy. But then I prep like strawberries, grapes, bell peppers, because they eat a lot of bell peppers. So I found that the easiest way for all of us to go for something healthy is if it's already done. If I don't have to wash it, they don't have to cut it. If I don't have to cut grapes, oh my gosh, it's like so much work to cut grapes so my little one doesn't choke. He just turned 5 on Monday, and I still cut the grapes because he chokes on everything. So I will pre-cut them and have them in the fridge, so it's just easy. And like when they get home from school, same thing. Like I just put stuff on the table so that I know at least they're getting some color, some fresh fruit and veggies, but then some color. And they're pretty good about it, but they give me a hard time when it comes to dinner. So I have a ton of cookbooks. But right now I'm kind of on the struggle bus with it a little bit because I'm feeling my anxiety creeping again. So I'm so glad that, we're having this conversation and it's not as taboo of a topic anymore, because it's overwhelming trying to plan. But the best tip that I have when I do it, it works really, really well, is meal planning. And no matter what, I always prep the produce just because it's something so easy to grab as a snack. Nuts and seeds and like dried fruit are like our secondary options. I always have them like super stocked in the pantry just because it's something like really easy to grab. And then if you like dairy, just like string cheese, Greek yogurt, things like that, like easy things to grab. So it's not always like chips or something like that. But when it comes to like actual dinners, pre-cooking rice ahead of time, or quinoa, or whatever your base is, like pre-doing that, lentils, keeping that in the fridge, that's been a huge time saver. It's all the other things like prepping the other veggies that becomes the most cumbersome part of cooking for me. But I have found that there's a lot of places, even Publix does it now, where you can buy like the veggies that are pre-sliced for you or whatever, so you can like throw it in the pan for stir fry. That has become like a go-to just because of the convenience. Yes, it costs a little more, but when it comes to sanity and time, like it's just worth it. In my opinion, it makes it a lot easier.
I agree 100% with that. Thanks, Erin. One of the things that we try to do too is we have a little chalkboard in our kitchen, and we'll plan out the meals for the week. Even the nights, like I know basketball, we might eat out because my son's basketball ends at 8:30. By the time we get home at 9, it's like, no, we're doing Chick-fil-A or whatever, but we'll have that. And then Monday will be teriyaki chicken with broccoli or whatever. And we'll make sure that we have the broccoli. We'll, make sure you have the groceries at home, because that when you don't have time to think, you know what I mean? As busy moms, think for me. Like do it ahead of time, get the groceries. I use Instacart a lot, get them delivered, pick them up curbside, anything that makes it easier. I'm a big fan.
We've been doing that too, curbside pickup and delivery, just to make it easier. And the nights of late sports, it's that weird thing when you have kids in sports. It's like, do we eat super early or do we eat super late? Like, what are you supposed to do? It makes it so difficult. But I have found that like the planning part helps make it a little bit easier. Stacey, do you have any insight or anything as far as like nutritional resources or information that would make it a little easier for us?
Erin, I think you're spot on. The studies do show that meal prep is really the way to go, because you're exactly right. The easier it is for us to grab it, the more prone we are to actually eat it. So if you can take that time and prep the week out, if you can get the snacks ready for the kids, then that is all beneficial for them. We do have nutritional resources here through Advent Health with the Primary Care Plus, that we have a resource group. We do diabetic education, but we also do nutritional support for anyone that's just like, hey, you know what? I need some help. I'm a busy mom. How am I going to, what's the best thing for me to serve late at night when we have late sports nights? And we do the referrals through the system, and they are working with that. They also have a group that now is coordinating with psych and counseling groups for obesity and for, you know, learning how like the new process with Noom and all the new apps to go through the mentality of why we do what we do and why we're making those food choices. So, you know, again, it was another taboo thing we didn't really talk about, you know, like, oh, they just eat too much because they eat too much. And, you know, the pandemic made us make not such great choices all the time because we were stuck at home and we were afraid to go to the store. And, you know, some people didn't want to pay the extra to get the stuff delivered. So unfortunately, you know, the bad stuff is usually a lot cheaper for you, a lot less expensive. And if you're, you know, feeling down in the dumps and you're tired, you're not ready to get up and prep your food and cook it. You know, it's a lot easier to just grab a handful of whatever. So with that, it's great that you can get some resources for it and you can get the help that you need. And it can give you some tips and tricks for, you know, hey, this is easy things to do. I'm a big Pinterester for my meals, especially, you know, my daughter is 6.5. So she's a little bit of a picky eater sometimes, like her mom. So a lot of times, you know, if you can make the food look a little bit fun, the kids are a little more apt to eat it. And then, you know, you always have that guilt. I know I do as a mom of like, oh, she didn't eat that great today. You know, are we going to be okay? Is she going to make it another day? Yeah, you know what? They will. They're going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. So I think as moms, you know, we need to give ourselves a little more credit because you guys are all doing a great job. So kudos to all of you for taking the time out to talk together and bring these topics to light because it's important.
I also wanted to share, there's a mom on social media. Her handle is Kids Eat in Color, and she shares amazing tips to how to get your picky eaters to try new things and eat new things, even older kids. Like these ideas are really, really great. So she's someone to definitely follow. And Deepa, who's on our call, she has laryngitis right now, but she wanted me to just mention she works with WIC, the WIC program, Women and Children. And so she said that WIC had an increase in the cash benefit for produce during the pandemic. It was part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So a lot of families benefited from that, and they were actually able to have access to healthier foods, which I had no idea. So thank you for sharing that, Deepa, because I think that's great that they had access to it. Each child received $24 for produce. So that's awesome. Women received $47. So that, I think, significantly helps with giving, you know, people that can't afford the healthier things some access to some of that during the pandemic. So yeah, so we've talked about, you know, how being a mom and how the pandemic has affected our ability to prioritize our healthcare. Stacey, thank you so much for sharing some great tips and some great information about Advent Health Primary Care Plus. I really like the fact that you guys focus on the whole person mentally and physically, and that you give these locations that are making it like a one-stop shop, making it easier for us moms. I wish that the Lake Nona one, because that's the closest to me, I wish that would open sooner than later, because I too am guilty of going to my gynecologist and being like, so we need to talk. However, she's really great and she'll listen to all my stuff, but she did tell me earlier this year, like, you need your PCP. And I'm like, I know, I just love you so much. So that's the hard thing, is when you find a doctor that you really, really love and you still have to go see like all these other ones. But anyway, I digress. If anyone has any last thoughts or maybe any questions, now would be a great time to go ahead and ask. Anybody? Any comments, anything?
I just have a quick comment. That's all. No questions. But I just want to say that this is such, just to piggyback off of what I was actually talking about earlier, it's just a sense of community. You know, we're virtual, but we're here. And every single thing that everyone said here, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm there. I got you. Yeah. And then I think it was Kelly said about the blood work. I'm so bad about getting blood work after I go to my doctor, because that was such an effort to go to my doctor that often the blood orders sit there, and then I start getting phone calls from my doctor's office to go get them. So it's just, all of our problems are unique, but also universal all at the same time. And I just appreciate hearing it all. It just reminds us that we are not alone, and we all have, you know, we're all going through it. So I just love these conversations. So that was all, just a quick comment.
Well, I thank you all so much for your willingness to participate in this mom panel and for taking some time out of your day to chat with us. And if you want to learn more about Advent Health Primary Care Plus, or take the next step in prioritizing your health, you can visit primarycareplusnow.com, or you can call 407-965 5109. And if you're watching this later on and you have any questions, please drop them in the comments or DM us, and we'll make sure that we get your question to the right person. So thank you again, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. Have a great one.
Erin,
Yes.
sorry, chime in. I know someone earlier had said about the scheduling on the phone to have all the calendars together. And I don't know if I did mention that. They do have the app set up on the phones with all the Advent Health locations that you can actually do that. So you just pick your location and then actually it pulls up, you pick whichever provider you want, and it works for the specialists as well. You can click on them and then it'll pull up all the dates available that they have at all the times. And you can actually book everything online. So it'll make it easier for you so you can coordinate all that together.
That's awesome. I did not know that. So thank you. I'll find a link to that and I'll make sure to include that in the comments, a link to their website and a link to that app. That's amazing. Thank you.